Well, hey there, everyone. It's your good friend, Eric. This is the Leading Edge podcast. This is episode number 45, and this is a very special episode because I have a very, very special guest who has agreed to join us here on episode number 45 in the Leading Edge. It's the one and only Bob Burg, who is the author of several books, including he's the co-author of a book I'm guessing that you've read or at least heard of. It's a great book called The Go-Giver. And why don't we start by Bob just saying hello to you. So Bob, welcome to the podcast.
Eric, thank you. It's so great to be with you and great to be with all your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, we are so grateful that you are joining us here. Your books have had a big, big influence on me. And I'm just going to give a quick background, a little bit of an introduction as we dive in here. So you, of course, are a very well-known author and speaker. You're the author of many, many books. Including you're the co-author of The Go-Giver. You co-authored that book with John David Mann. That book has sold well over 900,000 copies, translated into 28 languages. And that was the first book in a series. And the latest book in that series is called The Go-Giver Influencer. I haven't read that one yet. Really look forward to reading that one. You are a proud advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system. I love that, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people that we serve and how well we serve them. You're also, you say you're an unapologetic animal fanatic, and you're a past member, directors of Furry Friends Adoption Clinic and Ranch, and your hometown is Jupiter, Florida. So just want to thank you again for being a part of this. And
my pleasure.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, Bob, your books, the two books I've read, The Go-Giver and The Go-Giver Sell More, they just have had a big, big influence on me, really helped me to be better as a leader, better as a real estate coach. It helped me to pass on your lessons and messages to all the realtors that I work with. It helped them to be a lot better. And I also think it's worth acknowledging the time that we're in right now. So here we are, this is March of 2020 when we're recording this podcast, and here we are in the midst of coronavirus. And as I was preparing and getting ready for this podcast, I was going back through the books that I have that you've co-authored, and there were just a couple passages that really jumped out at me that I thought were so relevant to today. And so I would just read these real quick and then maybe get your take on that and maybe have you weigh in on how these relate to today. So this passage is from The Go-Giver. It's page 16. You say, go looking for the best in people, and you'll be amazed at how much talent, ingenuity, empathy, and goodwill you'll find. Then the next sentence says, ultimately, the world treats you more or less the way that you expect to be treated. And that was so meaningful to me in this, where we are right now, is that I think it's so important that we are out there proactively looking for the very best in people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because one thing that we've been, and whether you're watching the news or on social media a bunch, where sometimes really it gets a little impolite and nasty. But and certainly there is that. But we are also, if you look for it, you're seeing a lot of stories of people who are really stepping up and doing some great things at this point. People who are checking in on their neighbors, people who are making a call to someone they feel may be lonely and just need to hear from someone. That person who's making sure their neighbors, especially the ones that maybe have a bunch of kids, can't get out of the home, they're single parents, what have you, that when they run to the store, they're asking, do you need anything? And so there's a whole bunch of people, and these are heroic people. And now, of course, the healthcare workers, the people at the hospitals, and they're heroes by the nature of what they're doing, right? Just by being there. But you've got a lot of everyday heroes who are also just, making that extra effort take care of their neighbor and make sure that everyone's as safe and fed and comfortable as possible.
Absolutely. You're so spot on. And I really appreciate what you said about if you're looking for it, you'll find it. Those stories are there on Facebook. You have to look for them. And that, it's the people who are helping the seniors grocery shop, or like you said, checking in on their neighbors, et cetera. It's just awesome how people are stepping up. The other passage that jumped out at me, this is from and by the way, I name your books by color. So this is the green book, the Go Giver.
The green book, yeah.
Yeah. So the green book was the second book. It's called The Go Giver Sell More. Really powerful. This is page 8. This I love in regards to today. It says, regardless of what your particular product or service is, people are drawn to you or not because of how you make them feel. And I'm thinking that is so important. That's so relevant for today. How it's certainly not about selling today. It's about how we're making people feel. We're making them feel more safe and more comfortable, more secure. But if you could maybe help me expand on that and give me your perspective on that passage.
Well, when you think about selling anyway, selling, which often has a kind of a bad reputation due to, well, a lot of salespeople.
Yeah.
And there's a great misperception about selling out there. Many people think selling is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. And that certainly is not selling. That's called being a con artist. And that should never be confused with professional selling, which is all about discovering what the other person does need, does want, does desire, and helping them to get it. And if you go to the Old English root of the word sell, it's selan, which meant to give. So when you're selling, you're literally giving, not figuratively, literally. And someone might say, well, wait a second, Bob. I think that's just kind of a play on words there. What do you mean you're literally giving when you're selling? What are you giving? And what I would say is that, when you're about to do a presentation, let's say, and you are selling, what are you giving? You're giving that person time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and more than anything, exquisite value.
Yes.
And I think when we understand that, we look at selling at a different way, in a much more beneficial and positive way. And one of the things that you've seen John and I say throughout both books, and I call this the golden rule of selling, a golden rule of business, maybe it's the golden rule of life, but that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And when you think about it, know, like, and trust, those are about feelings, especially the like and trust. And it's not that the product or service isn't important. Of course it is. It's got to measure up. It's got to be high quality. It's got to, obviously, or it doesn't matter how much they know, like, and trust you, you're not going to get the business, or at least you won't get the business twice. But these days, technology is pretty much leveled off the playing field. Most products and services work. They work really well. And, they can be priced pretty similarly. And if a prospective customer doesn't, is not able to distinguish between two or more products or services, it's always going to come down to who has the lowest price. And that's not how you want to do business, whether you're in real estate or financial services or, you're a dentist or whatever it happens to be. And so, how do you distinguish yourself? Well, when you become that person who is liked, that person who is trusted, then, all things being equal, you're the one who's going to get the business. But it's not just business. It's also life. And this also has to do with what we're going through right now in the current situation, because those salespeople who, at this point can kind of reach out to their current customers and clients and just communicate with them and just let them know that they are thinking of them, not to sell them anything, but just let them know they care about them, and ask how their family is, and ask if they need anything, and ask if they need to be connected with someone who can help them do something, and make sure that within your network, and I saw Tom Hopkins write something about this the other day. He said, actually make a list of everybody who provides different products and services who's in your network, and make sure that when you make your calls to people to check in on them, that you have those other people in mind, so you can connect people with each other and make sure people are taken care of and have what they need. Again, this is that what we call that other focus instead of an I focus or a me focus. And this elicits trust. And again, you're not doing this because you're trying to get something from it. You are this way because it's who you are. It's because it's who you are that it's what you do.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we're coaching our people right now to reach out to 5 clients per day just to check on them. Just check on them, see how they're doing. You can have fun with them and check, ask them about their toilet paper supply, but just we're finding that people just really enjoy hearing from others. And something I noticed right now, I don't know if you noticed this, people are answering their phones more than they ever have. As I'm calling people, I'm getting way fewer voicemails than I'm accustomed to. So it just shows me people are craving connection right now more than ever.
Sure. Well, you think about it. I mean, we are a social animal. It's how we're programmed. This goes back to the cave person days, when it was a matter of survival to be part of that 150 person tribe, as they usually use those numbers, and that's been hardwired into our DNA. So whether we're extroverted or introverted, we still have to have some contact with people, right, in order to feel fulfilled and feel human. And so really, very important just to, when you can keep in touch, and especially, and again, I go back to, someone who's elderly or someone, doesn't have a big social network, and I'm not talking social media network, but I mean people in their lives, that call you make, not a text, but although, that's fine, but I mean, a call to that person just to check in on them and let them know you're thinking of them and asking them if they're okay and what they might need. That just means the world. It has nothing to do with business. It just means the world to people.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So how about this? Let's go back to the Red Book, the first book, the Go Giver. And it just as either in case someone has not read the book, or in case someone did and they just kind of need a refresher, it's a great book to go back to. Can you just walk us through just the premise of the book itself? And then the book has 5 laws, and then maybe you can give a quick overview of those 5 laws.
Sure. The premise is it's a very, very elementary premise. It's simply that shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. Not for some magical, mystical reasons. It actually, when you think about it, it makes very rational, logical sense. When you are that person, that rare person who can take their focus off themselves and actually place it on others, people feel good about you and they want to get to know you. They do begin to like you. They do trust you. They want to be a part of your life. They want to, they want to sing your praises to others. They're much more likely, though, to want to do business with you. And again, that just makes sense. They feel much more secure in doing business with you. It's interesting. Whenever I speak at a sales conference, I'll often start by saying, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and they're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And in the basically free market economy in which we live, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. People do so on their own volition. So in that type of market, it's the only reason why they should buy from you or from me or from anyone else, because they believe they're going to benefit as a result. And the great thing about this is it means that entrepreneur or that salesperson who is just laser focused on bringing value to the marketplace, bringing value to others, bringing value to the individuals with whom they work, that's the person who is going to do the most business. And so around that premise, are the 5 laws. Those laws are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. And, you know, a thumbnail of each of them, the law of value is all about providing such a wonderful experience to that other person. Sure, through your product or your service, but also through, again, going back to something you mentioned earlier, through the way you make them feel throughout the process. And everything about that experience, that excellence, that consistency, that attention, that empathy, that appreciation you display, all these things add to the overall value so that this person is receiving more in value than what they're paying, right? They feel so great about it that to them it was well worth what they paid and much, much more, while of course you or the salesperson makes a very, very healthy profit. So, you know, one of my old heroes, Harry Brown, used to say that, again, in a free market-based exchange, there's always 2 profits, the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each of them come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. So that's really the law of value. The law of compensation says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 is about providing that immense value to that other person, law number 2 tells us the more people whose lives we touch with the exceptional value we provide, the more money with which we'll be rewarded. So it means that rather than you know, helping one person own a home or help one person successfully list their home in a year, it means that you have helped a whole lot of people
Yes.
list or buy homes or whatever it is you happen to be selling. So law number 3 is the law of influence. This says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. No, not in a way that's self-sacrificial or martyrous. We're not talking about that at all. It just goes back to understanding, as several of the mentors told Joe in the story, that, again, as you and I were talking about, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, here's the thing. There's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely and authentically moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus, looking for ways to, as Sam, one of the mentors, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win. And to the degree you do that and do so consistently, you will gain a reputation for doing that and being that center of influence within your community, and you'll develop what we call your army of personal walking ambassadors.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Law number 4, the law of authenticity, says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. In this story, or in this chapter, the mentor here, whose name was Deborah Davenport, who was a very, very top-producing realtor, she explained that she learned a very important lesson in her sales career, and that is that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and indeed they are all very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. People feel very comfortable with you. People feel very safe. Notice again, all these are feelings. And you know, people are much more likely to, again, want to do business with you, and they feel very secure in telling others about you as well. And then law number 5, which sort of ties it together, is the law of receptivity. And this says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. So just like breathing out and breathing in, you know, we have to do both, right? We can't just do one or the other and survive, never mind thrive. We breathe out carbon dioxide. We also breathe in oxygen. It's not one or the other. And it's the same with giving and receiving. Yes, we focus on the giving of value. We focus on the giving, and then we must allow the receiving into our life. So you know that you're focusing on the value, you're focusing on the giving, but then you're allowed, this is really why John and I say that money is simply an echo of value. You think about that, money is simply an echo of value. It means the value must come first. You must focus absolutely intently on bringing immense value to others. And when you do, you begin the receiving process. However, you must be willing and able to receive.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's value first, then money. In the book, I remember you use the metaphor of a fire, where some people say, well, I'd like to get heat from the fire before I put a log in the fire, or using a bank deposit. I'd like to get my deposit before I put money in the bank. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. It's value.
Exactly. These are, laws of life, and they're nothing that John and I made up. Certainly, we've just put them in story form. But successful people, they deal in truths. They discover how things work, and they approach it that way. Now, that doesn't mean they don't make improvements on it. Of course they do. That's what advancement is. That's how we nudge the world forward, by advancing on what already is. But in order to do so, we must first understand what is. Only when we acknowledge what is are we able to then take that and then actually make it better for everyone involved. And
boy, that's great advice for right now. That is beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that recap of the book. I just felt like I lived my wonderful experience of reading the book. So hopefully other people had the same reaction, or if you hadn't read it yet, you're now inspired to go read the book. Next question I have for you, Bob, if you could go back to before you had co-authored the book, before you really knew anything about what it meant to be a go-giver and all that entailed, was there any advice that you got that was a real game changer, a real difference maker for you?
I've always been lucky to have great mentors throughout the years who came at just the right time. and some of them were with me for a while, and others are what we call drive-by mentors, people who maybe just offered up one great piece of advice, right? That just happened to come at the exact time that we were ready for it, and and this is one of those times. And I remember I'd been in sales for a couple of years. I'd really studied sales, and I was doing well. But I had hit a roadblock, and I wasn't doing nearly as well as I should have been. And I remember coming back from a sales appointment. It was a non-selling appointment, not by design. It was supposed to be a selling appointment. But because of myself, the sale did not take place. And someone who really would have benefited from the product I was selling, they didn't end up buying. And I was back at the office at the company I was working for at the time, and I must have looked really disgusted about myself. And there was an old guy who I think he was just about to retire, because I don't even remember seeing him after that. And he was not in the sales department. I think he was an engineer or something. But he was one of these guys who didn't say much, but whenever he did, it was always something profound. We've all known those people, right? And I think he saw me sort of as we painted Joe in the story, a guy who was, nice guy, worked hard, was fairly successful, but there was something holding him back, which was what? Himself. And I was holding myself back. And I think he saw me as Joe. And he said to me, "Burg, can I give you some advice?" And I said, "Yeah, please do." And he said, "If you want to make a lot of money in sales," he said, "don't have making money as your target. Your target," he said, "is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you want. But never forget," he said, "the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. Your target is serving others."
Wonderful.
And that was a difference maker to me. That's what said to me, basically, that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. Great salesmanship is never even about the product or service, as important as that is. Great salesmanship is about understanding that it's all about the other person whose life you're trying to touch, that person whose life you're trying to make better, that person whose life you're trying to add exceptional value to, and how they will benefit from working with you.
And Bob, I'm guessing you would say the same thing about leadership as well, that leadership is all about the other person, certainly not about yourself.
Yeah, great leadership is never about the leader, right? And you know, you read so many books on leadership, and you notice that big difference that so many of these great authors point out, that the difference between that good leader and that great leader is a lot of times the good leader, it's about them and they just are very talented, okay? But the great leader makes it about others. The great leader equips others. The great leader gives the credit to others when things go well, and they'll accept the blame when things don't. And that's such a big difference. Jim Collins talks about that being the difference between the level 4 and level 5 leader in his exquisite book, Good to Great. And I've read many other authors who share similar thoughts on that. And it really is, I've just seen that to be so true in my experiences.
Yeah, Jim Collins talks about great leaders look at the window where lesser leaders look in the mirror, where the lesser leaders it's all about them, where the great leaders looking out the window to give credit to others and see how they could better serve others. So I have 2 more questions for you, Bob, if that's all right. One is about influence, and that's the topic of your most recent book. Influence. I think that it's so important right now, and all of us looking for ways that we can greater influence others, that we can model the behavior that we wish to see in the world right now. And I think people are craving leadership, they're craving influence. So tell us how being a go-giver relates to influence.
Well, if you take the word influence and you define it just on a very, very basic level, influence is simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. That's influence or leadership. Now, that's the definition of influence, but it's by no means the substance or the essence of influence, at least not go-giver influence. The essence of influence is pull as opposed to push, as in the famous saying, how far can you push a rope? And the answer, of course, is not very, at least not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers, go-giver influencers, what we would call genuine influencers, they don't push. They don't push their ideas on people. They don't push their will on others. They're not pushy. Instead, they utilize pull. Pull is an attraction, right? Great influencers attract people to themselves first and only then to their ideas. So how do they do this? How do they pull? Well, you know, I think these types of leaders, these types of influencers, they understand on a, not just an intellectual level, but really on a heart level, what I believe was the underlying premise of Dale Carnegie's classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this is where he wrote that ultimately people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. So the go-giver influencer, the genuine influencer, first ask themselves questions to make sure they're pointed in the right direction. So the questions they ask themselves would be, does what I'm, you know, or how does what I'm asking this other person to do, how does it align with their goals, with their wants, with their needs, with their desires? How does what I'm asking this other person to do, how does it align with their values? What problems am I helping them to solve? How am I helping their life to be better? And when we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another person into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment as opposed to trying to depend on some type of compliance, which is, push or manipulation or, something along those lines.
Beautiful. This is fantastic. I love it. The last question I have for you, Bob, is related to right now. And so the question is going to be, what advice do you have for people right now? And as we think about, there's some people who are anxious and people who feel uncertain. They feel worked up. They don't know what to do. They're kind of shutting down or shutting off. And then we also see those who are really stepping up. So what advice do you have with the go-giver mentality on the best ways to face the circumstances of right now and the coronavirus and all the reactions that it's causing?
Well, the first thing I'm going to suggest is don't panic, okay? Because things are what they are, which doesn't mean it's a good thing. Saying don't panic isn't the same as saying, hey, be happy about it. We want to live in the real world. And again, we want to deal in truth. I was so disappointed. I'll say this. I was very disappointed to read an article the other day that was written by someone who, politically I don't necessarily always agree with, but I always respect this person's thought processes. But this person actually wrote, now might be the time to panic. And what this person was trying to say was, we haven't taken this seriously enough, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if that's how she feels, that's fine. I respect that. But she should not have said, now is the time to panic. That is not a good idea. That's not a good lesson. If she wanted to say, if she didn't think it was being taken seriously enough and she wanted to say, now is a good time to take this very seriously, okay, I can agree with that. Absolutely. But it's never a good time to panic, because panic by its very nature is a form of emotional attachment. And again, by definition, it means it's controlling you. And when in panic, we are not in a good situation to make good decisions. So absolutely do not panic. Take it seriously, of course. Determine who out there is giving good advice and who isn't, and follow that good advice. Absolutely. Now that we're there, we also want to understand that as difficult as it is right now, and again, it is. Let's look at it as it is. It is going to end. We are going to get past this, as we always do, and things will pick up. Things will get better again, and in fact, probably things will be better than what they were. And because that's usually what happens, and that's human nature, and it's how we respond to things. After this, there'll be a cure for this, and something like this won't happen again. Hopefully, we can never tell the future, but that's based on the past. We can expect that that's the case. The free marketplace, to the degree it's allowed to exist, will come up with the correct medications and so forth. And then the other thing I would just suggest is take your focus, if you can, off of yourself to the degree that you can, and go back to focusing on how can you make a positive difference in your world. Whether it's just, really working on the relationship with your spouse or kids, who now you have an opportunity to spend a lot more time with, or again, whether it's calling your customers or clients just to check in on them, or the neighbor or the elderly person or whomever it happens to be. To the degree that you can be outwardly focused, inwardly motivated, but outwardly focused, that's the degree that you're less likely to kind of feel down and feel depressed, and instead be looking at how you can make a difference.
Wonderful. That's my personal vision and hope for the outcome of this, is that people learn the power of giving, and they learn the power of taking the focus off of themselves. I think that is the thing that will help us all get through this better and faster, if we can really put all the focus on other people. Bob, you've been terrific. I just thank you so much. I encourage all of our listeners, guessing that most of you have read The Go-Giver, I encourage all of our listeners to get the other books. Me personally, I've read the Green Book, which is the second one, The Go-Giver Sell More, and I've committed myself to get the next two the Go Giver Leader and the Go Giver Influencer, the purple or the blue and the purple book. All four are fantastic. Now's a good time to learn, to grow, to read. And Bob, is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to do? Anything else you direct them to do if they want to just tap into this more and learn more about you, learn more about what you teach? Anything else you would ask them to do?
Oh, they can go to burg.com if they'd like and explore the site and have fun. We do have a video series called Influence and Success Insights that you can subscribe to, or just check out the archives and watch and enjoy. And no, other than that, just I wish everyone well and stay safe. And again, let's really work on making the best of a yucky situation, and all of us individually and collectively come out stronger.
Absolutely. And again, that was burg.com, burg.com, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. And well, Bob, thank you again. And thank you to all of our listeners. And to everyone, thanks as always for engaging. And we'll see you in the next podcast. And Bob, take care.
Thank you. You too.